All right, my name is Dr. Emily Lewis. There's a few people that I know that are here in the room, and so I'll be sharing some of the information, but they'll know a lot about it. And so my title says Student Success, but I want to give you the extension of it. It is Course Redesign to Improve Student Academic Success. Again, my name is Dr. Emily Lewis. I am the Academic Dean for Charter Oak State College. I've been there about a little more than 2.5 years, and I have one of my, we call it first day partners. We started on the exact first day, lunch, so we're first day buddies. And of course, you know it is the college's state's public online institution. And we have here some of our core faculty that actually support Charter Oak that's here in the room as well. And so I'm glad they came to support me. I hope they came to support me, but of course we'll come to learn a little bit more. Thank you. Their presence makes me feel like they're pulling for me. And so I have over 20 years of higher education experience, actually as an administrator and instructor. And so I will talk a little bit about my next piece is going to be the agenda, but I'm going to tell you how I came to have a passion for online learning. So I'm going to hit two major spots, and if you notice, there's some little things in between there that I'll be talking about. But I'm going to tell you about the Charter Oak redesign story. And for me, everything becomes data and research. So I'm going to tell you about the goal and the purpose, the research design, and my research questions and results. Then I want to talk to you about the key elements of that course redesign that I talked about, but I'm going to share some things that won't totally be online, though possibly you can think about them for your on-site courses as well. So from the last piece, I'm going to talk about considerations, some of the things and challenges, some of the things I learned from this process. And it is a process I have to repeat again, but it was a good learning experience. And so for me, I enjoy learning, and I think that's why most of us are in higher ed. It's the key that I get to learn so much every day. And so I create my little ground to constantly be learning, reading, trying to understand how can I improve it. So the Charter Oak story. Now what happened was I started at Charter Oak, I said about 2.5 years ago, and there was one course that I would get 40 to 50 grade appeals for consistently every semester. That's uncommon. I've been in higher ed for so long, that's really uncommon, and I wasn't sure what is going on with this course that students are so angry about it. The other piece of the course is an 8-week course, and every student at Charter Oak has to take the course because it's our residency course. So as soon as they matriculate, they have to take it. And then I had internal complaints from the staff, admissions, and everything about this course. We're bringing students in, and they're leaving over this course. So I decided to do some digging. And so from this course, what happened was, it's the residency course. It has the highest enrollment. I'm going to talk about that quite a bit. Highest enrollment. We have probably 15, if not more, sections every 8-week term. And this sets off the perception of the institution. Now, when I looked at the course, that was not the only course that I had some concerns about, but I'll talk again about prioritizing your concerns when you identify things in the data about what you need to do about it. And of course, I have the strategic initiative that I am supposed to help improve the retention for first-year students. And this would be our first-year students because everyone comes in the door has to take it the first couple of months. So those were setting off priorities of why this one I need to take a little further look at it. So this is a little bit about the story, how I got to the redesign process. Now I want to ask some of you, have any of you participated in any course redesigns processes? Share a little bit about what your course redesign process was, or is currently.
Well, we've taken on-the-ground courses and made them be completely online, and some taken and turned into hybrids and that kind of thing.
Okay, that's a form of redesign as well. Yes.
That's individual course redesign and program redesign. So
Okay.
you're looking at expected learning outcomes, proficiencies, benchmarks, and looking at what works for students, especially when you can align it with exams,
Yes.
you know, if they're quality exams, and looking at how students learn, reflecting on that, and how we're delivering and resources that they have.
Yes, and this is all the sort of the things you're going to be considering when you're looking at the course redesign and when I talk about the models. Because you'll sit and think about, here is a course and what can I do to make it better for the students. Now, the purpose, the goal and purpose. This study looked at, I asked our director of assessment to run grades for every single course at our institution for 5 years, because I need a track. And in this course, you fail the course if you receive a C minus. So I'm looking at all of our courses and looking at what are some that might be some challenges. So I'm not saying this was the only course, but this one, when it came to priority of redesigning, this is the one we needed to look at. The other piece was reducing the student's failure rate. And I'll tell you the numbers as we move forward of what the failure rate was for this course. So you're looking at courses, looking at the data, and you want historical data. You don't want to just say, this year, because our students come in every year younger, and sometimes skill sets are different. So you're not looking at 1 year, you're looking at consistency. So we looked at historical data. And then the purpose of this study was, again, to improve the retention rate for first-year students. And I had to write next to my strategic plan, what are you going to do? And this is one initiative that I started to address that strategic plan initiative. This study examined the grades of students taking the residency course prior to the redesign and after. So we sort of looked at both sides. Now, I do have to say there were some limitations, because when you start something, there's a lot of data. So this would be our phase 2 piece. We didn't look at students that retook the course. At our institution, they can retake the course 2 times, but they must pass it that second time. If not, we dismiss them from our institution. So you can understand why this became very critical for me. And also, we're not looking at students who withdrew or were administratively withdrawn, because that's a bigger scope, and we really have to sit down and look at literature on how do we find out why is this population withdrawing, or we are administratively withdrawing them because maybe they didn't show up to class, or there were financial aid issues. That becomes a bigger thing that we have to consider. So I want to just let you know, these were some of the limitations, but I really want to look at that because that still was a big piece of the failure rate. Now, I did a quasi, if I pronounce it right, experimental design for this study, and we looked at the enrollments for academic year 2013 and 14, compared it to 2015, 14 and 15, and the independent variable is the student groups, and the dependent variables are the grades and the end of course satisfaction surveys. So I did look at that too. I didn't just look at grades. I looked at the satisfaction surveys to see how satisfied were students overall with both courses. Here's the research questions. How many students enrolled in both academic years? So now you can see why this was a concern for me. These are new students coming in the door. For 2013-14, 721 students. And 942 for 2014-15. The reason why we had a sort of jump, we had the Go Back to Get Ahead program. So that caused a little bit more of our new enrollments there. And what was the original failure rate for the first year, 13-14? It was 17%. And remember, this doesn't include withdrawals and administrative withdrawals numbers. So did the failure rate change? So I'm still talking about the story of Charter Oak. Yes, it changed. It changed by 5% in that 1 year. And so, of course, I'll talk about in our discussions, I'm going to keep going and watching that data because this course is critical. And this one is critical because it enrolls the largest number of students in our course, in our school. And so our failure rate went down from 17 to 12% in 1 year. And I have to give credit to the faculty too, and we'll talk about that, policies and procedures, and how the faculty supported those issues. And if you were in President Nunez's program, she talked about professional development. I had to, send a lot of information, professional development. That's a key to helping the faculty to embrace a new curriculum as well. Satisfaction, overall, that improved. So that says that their impression of our institution has improved, and we want them to be satisfied, especially early on when they're admitted at the institution. So I'm going to define for you course redesign process. And I'll talk a little bit about why I'm using this definition as we move forward. The National Center for Academic Transformation defines course redesign as a process of redesigning whole courses rather than individual classes or sections to achieve a better learning outcome at low cost by taking advantage of the capabilities of information technology. Assumptions about a course redesign, some things you want to think about if you right now in your mind you're thinking about a course within your program. How many administrators do we have in the room? So I have faculty. So now you have your courses and you're thinking about, and you have to be honest with yourself. So if you have data and you have historical data, think about some of these assumptions when you want to find out a reason for redesigning. Is there a consistent high failure rate that's impacting retention and graduation? What we're all facing, budget cuts that leave you with fewer resources with the same students or more students to serve. And also just those courses with high enrollments that we need to really figure out how we're going to retain students. And some of those I can think of. The course, our residency course is IDS 101, our cornerstone course, but it's English, it's math, some of those courses that everybody has to take, those basic general ed courses. And sometimes you want to start with those courses because when they become panicky, though that's some of the reasons why students don't stay. And actually, if you were in that President Niños's presentation, she mentioned that as well. And the other thing is, we have to look at the challenge we're faced with attainment of degrees by Hispanics and African Americans, and sometimes they get lost at the general ed piece. And there's ways that we can help them be a little bit more successful there. Essentials, some essential design things. You want to make sure it's a total redesign, and we'll talk more about that when we're talking about models. It's totally redesigning. Take a look at the current course. So let me tell you a little bit about the story. When we looked at the course, we realized that some of the learning outcomes moved away from what the students were supposed to do, and the activities as well, because they were trying to accomplish they were trying to accomplish things like, well, the student needs to know what their program plan. The course was sort of designed to be a freshman experience versus that writing and critical thinking component. Trying to serve the institution, sometimes we put too much into a course and move it and not even realize we moved the course away from what it's supposed to do. And so that was the one thing, and we'll talk about identifying your team, the team identified. You want to make sure you're thinking about student-centered approaches, and it works not just for adult students, it works for all students. And also, what type of interactions are you going to have? Are your assessments or assignments really aligned with the activities that you have and are really measuring what you want students to learn by the time they leave your course? That alignment piece. And providing additional supports. We have less resources. But some of those additional supports can be, and some of you may already use them, something like Purdue OWL. We have open resource materials, and we're right now completing a math course using all open resource materials. It's no textbook cost to it, but they're using an open resource My Math Lab. So what other resources are available where students can practice? And you can include that in the course. We'll talk more about that. And what I'm finding that we need to make sure we communicate well with students that yes, it's going to take you 20 hours commitment to my class. And so we work with a lot of adult students, and I am the academic dean. So I get these emails where they say, well, doesn't this professor know I have children and I have a job? And so it is my job to help educate our faculty to say you need to tell somewhere, you need to communicate with students the time on task. That this is going to require some commitment. And especially online, it requires you to be so self-directed. You've got to take control. I went to a meeting and met with some of the students, I think on Thursday night, and that was a conversation we had, understanding what are some of the methods that you'll have to be successful online. You might have to print. I'm a printer. And when I took courses online, I printed every single document, carried it around with me, read it, and drafted up my work so I'll be ready to put it online. So those are things, time on task. Monitoring processes for intervention purposes. When we redesigned this course, we actually put in we had e-tutoring with protocols just for these students. Because we have adult students coming in and sometimes they're out of school maybe for 5 to 10 years and haven't had to write. So we had to put in some new protocols for that. And then also we are getting more students where English is their second language or they have various types of cognitive disabilities. So we had to put in what we call embedded tutoring, which is a faculty member sort of notifies us, lets us know something's going on here and I'm not sure and this person needs some additional support. And we actually find a one-on-one tutor that would possibly do it virtually with the student. We don't get a lot of those requests, but every now and then I get that one that they need a little help. It's nothing wrong with their ability to do it, it's just they're not formatting it well for whatever reason. So we try to put in those additional resources. And then the other thing is you're going to have to continue to measure success. So I can't do this year, get my 5% success, and not keep watching this, not keep assessing what I need to do. Even though I have to do it again with a couple of more courses, but I have to build that in the process, that we're going to have to run the data again. I'll have to continue to communicate with the faculty, the process. So I'll continually be measuring this. So I want to talk about why I chose the National Center for Academic Transformation. This is based on their research that they've done with 195 redesign projects. I looked at a lot of data and I don't believe we need to recreate the wheel, but they have worked with some other institutions, had some success with it. So I decided I'm going to take a look and implement some of the things that they have put in place. And so they had 195 redesign projects, 80% of them completed it. Out of the 156, 72% improved student performance. And I can say from even though I might have tweaked it a little bit for my institution, for my course, but by using their model, I have received results. And that's why, and one of the things you'll have to keep on monitoring to continue to gain those results. Now, it says a cost savings of 34%. I wasn't looking at it from a cost savings perspective. I was looking at it from a perspective I need to improve student performance. But in the long run, if you keep students in your institutions, then we don't have to keep on spending money to replace that seat. So the goal is to keep them in school. So I would say 5% more of our students are staying. So we can, I believe, keep on working at that to get that 12% down. I identify the course. I've talked a little bit about this, that I gathered the data. How many of you have access to data for your courses? Okay, so I gathered that 5-year data. And then from there, I looked at the failure rates and then start prioritizing which course would I start with first. And remember, I'll go back. This is not an easy process if you're doing it with a course that has high enrollments, many sections, because you're impacting many faculty. Okay, so I did bring faculty together who taught this course to have this discussion. We all walked away agreeing something needs to be done. But the issue was what? What needs to be done? And so that's why I found this design. Thank you for coming. I found this
I
design,
have something to do on that.
okay. And that's why this design I felt worked well, because it was sort of smoother. I could take what they learned, I can read the other schools, how did they do it, how did it work for them? Now the various models. Now the only model that I use, and of course is number 4, is the fully online model. But I'm going to talk a little bit about each model, just give you a brief information. But if you go to just Google the National Center for Academic Transformation and Course Redesign, there is so much literature. They have really gathered everything, and you can read over all of that. I actually have a nice packet, and you can read over all of it to find out what would fit for you. But for me, examining their models, the fully online, because I'm fully online, everything, the feedback, everything according to that model works. But for the supplemental model, it's a situation where you basically retain the structure of the traditional course, the structure. You have supplemental lectures that you use technology for. So you read every one of these models, you're redesigning an entire course, but you're promoting more engagement. The replacement model, you're reducing the number of in-class sessions, but it's not necessarily considered blended or hybrid format. And so it says places emphasis on replaces in-class sessions with technology-based activities, interactions. They're replacing it, but it's not necessarily, they don't consider it a blended or they don't consider that. So some of the examples they use would be a Spanish course. Maybe you find another technology resource out there that would require students to use, actually could practice their Spanish. And somehow the faculty member would know that this was taking place. But you're reducing, you have on-site classes, but reducing some of that time on-site. When we look at the Emporium model, that model replaces lectures with resource centers. Again, this might be used for math, where you would send the student to the resource center. You know, they probably have to sign in for so long. I actually went to, I forgot what community college, where they have this model. They have similar model where it's a resource center. There's someone there almost walking through and they've got the screens going, but it's a piece of the class. And when you look at the fully online model, it is everything online, all resources. And I wanted to try to bring you up a model of Charter Oaks classes. We use a template. Students come into the course, it looks the same. All resources are in the same spot. Why? Because you don't want them to have a learning curve when they come into a course and they're clicking trying to find the same stuff. So the same format, faculty have something for their course policies, their rubrics, there's Charter Oaks policies, there's Charter Oak resource tabs, but students do not have to go through and figure out for this class, where do I find this? They can focus on trying to just learn the curriculum. Now the link model, let me grab my piece of paper, hopefully I didn't lose that one. Might have forgot that one. The link model, let me remember, the link model, oh, it's a workshop. This is one where it's removes the, what do they call the, oh goodness, it's, you can help me, remedial courses. And they place it for a workshop that's placed in the course. That actually allows the students who are struggling a little bit to use those little workshops to gain the competencies versus having to not take the course and then taking a remedial course first before they can take the actual course. They just embed something as a workshop within the course. And then the buffet model, that one when I read over, I thought it could be complicated, but it's one where you customize the course for every student. So think about it this way. And so this way, I'll tell you my story about online learning. It's a situation where you're saying, I want you to tell me, read this, do this, and this is your assignment. But you're going to give them options of how to deliver that assignment to you. So you might decide, I'm going to find a video and I'll give you maybe a paragraph summary of this video that supports your topic. This person says, I would just feel better if I could just write the essay. And this person would say, I will do a presentation for you. So you allow them the flexibility of how they can deliver it to you. You allow them the flexibility of the topic. So here is the main topic for the course, okay? But I want you to go out, and I used to use this similar in an on-site course. I would say every week we're going to have a topic, and you have to bring something that you researched at home. It could be an article, something, but you have to bring it to class and present it. But you have to give me a bibliography. That would be your source you give to me. And so everybody came in, but what happened was it created a very enriching learning environment and interactive, because nobody thought that that much information could be presented from different perspectives, but they found the resource. So everybody's looking at me. But it is no more than creating that interaction, broadening the learning perspective for your students, where you're causing them to do the research. That's just one example. You cause them to do the research, come back and teach the class. Then you have a broader perspective of a discussion because everybody brought a piece. So if it's on economics, what's going on right now in the market? Can you imagine what everyone could bring to the class? So that would be a little thinking about it from a buffet perspective. Not standing like I'm doing, lecturing to you, but you're allowing everybody to bring pieces to the learning. I just find that people, I have a bashful student who comes alive because I allowed them to talk from their perspective on this topic. And we create very safe environments for that. So that's the buffet, type of buffet style. Instructional needs. You need to identify a team, okay? And so when I met with the faculty, one of the pieces of that was trying to find someone within that group who could help us. Someone, it could be more than one person, but we didn't want to repeat the past. And so you need somebody to say, well, you know what, that was the pitfall in that course. So I don't know if you want to do it that way. So we found one member of the team or members of the team should be somebody who's familiar with the current course. The other one we picked was someone who had no connection to the course. A subject matter expert who could look at it and say, okay, hold on, you know what, we can present this a little better in a learning format. So for this course redesign, we identified she was a core faculty member who had not taught this course. And what I mean by core faculty member, we don't have full-time faculty, but we have faculty that come from other institutions that are help make policy, help to guide the institution. And so this person was selected because she led a student center for writing. And this course focused on critical thinking, digital genre, research writing, and who could help us best make sure that we have a very enriched course this go around. So we have people who are going to tell us don't do that because that's where the students weren't doing well at that point. And here we have that. And I included an instructional designer. So that this person, because it's an online course, could tell us best practices for what would work well online and what would not work well online. The other person, and this is foresight that I felt we should have had, was someone who would edit the course. We were too close to it. We used our model. Our model was the first run, everybody edited it, and it caused a little confusion for the faculty, and they weren't quite happy on that. If I had to do it again, I'd have someone, especially if you have many sections, many faculty teaching it, have somebody take a look and do some edits for you. So that was a learning experience for us. And then we took a look at the learning outcomes, and I'm going to talk about this in my challenges and issues. We had to go back now. The course moved from being a freshman experience course to actually a liberal studies course. So we had to look at the credentials of the faculty and find out, do they still fit? And we had to move them into other courses. So the piece of change, that piece of change. So that was another thing. So you're going to have to look at the credentials of your faculty. If you find that your learning outcomes are changing where the course is actually here versus there anymore. And so we had people who with psychology backgrounds. We had people who only taught freshman experience courses. And now we're making it a writing course, a liberal studies writing course. So we had to make those movements. All right, challenges and considerations, and then I'll let you just start asking me questions if you like. Ongoing assessment, as I mentioned, I'll continue to review the data. Phase 2, we're going to have to look at that pocket that is also falling off the radar, and that's the withdrawals and administrative withdrawal students. Before I get to the issue of change, I want to talk about, and I meant to put this on the PowerPoint, this redesign also required that we look at our policies and change policies. Can you imagine what policy we had to look at to change? It's a writing course. It's quiet. We had to look at our plagiarism policy. Yeah, that one I took through a whole lot through the committees. It had to go through the committees because think about it. My provost and I would sit and look at something a faculty said was plagiarized. She'd look at it and say it's plagiarized, and I'd say poor citing. And there's that middle gray. So everybody who's teaching has your perspective of what it is or what it's not. So we decided, working with the provost, that we would draft up a plagiarism policy to submit to the committees. And the policy ended up where we now have, I call it progressive, that's my HR background, progressive discipline, where if the faculty identifies it, it's a 0. That way we're not just putting them out. As soon as we think it is, you may think it is, and that student's out. Then I get a grade appeal. Because the student didn't really feel like they did, that wasn't their intent or whatever. So this way, and the faculty member has to give good feedback about what they mean they're doing that is raising flags for plagiarism. And the next go round, you've been warned, and so now you will get a 0 for the class. So we had to look at, is the policy working to help us with the redesigned course? So think about that. You're going to have to think about, are there other elements that could be harming the efforts when you go to redesign a course and you're trying to retain students and keep them in their courses? So you have to think about that. And then the issue here of change. I sent an email to our faculty in January. I'm from the Midwest originally. And as a teenager, I ended up in Chicago. And I sent them this email. I always send an email at the beginning of the year saying something, to wish them a happy new year. And as I was pondering this whole redesign process, I thought about it. I'm from Chicago, and has anybody been to Chicago, the Magnificent Mile? Yeah. And I told them about my love of Chicago. My family's there, but it's too cold for me to live there. But if you go to Chicago and you don't go for a few years, it will change on you. And imagine I grew up where I knew that it would change. Things would change. And then suddenly, you have to think about and figure out how you'll take people through a change process. This is why I'm talking about this. So here, this faculty have this course, and this individual wants to change it. So it says, the quote says, "You appear dangerous to people when you question their values, beliefs, and habits of a lifetime." So what I had to do is get through this, try to reassure them. Remember, I had to move faculty, had to reassure them that, everything's fine, you're still with us, you're not going anywhere, but make sure you find the time to celebrate. As soon as I had all the data analyzed and everything, and we had our faculty meeting last week, I made sure that all of our faculty members attending, we had 144 registered, let them know the success of this course, and please give great applause to every one of those faculty members because it was a change. They had to learn a new curriculum. They had to learn a new design. I was comfortable with this one, and now we have something new. Celebrate the change. Appreciate those who've helped you get through the change and have helped you accomplish success. So that was the biggest challenge I think we had, was that. Questions for me? Got a question?
One of your early slides, you listed 3 criteria for considering when to transform a course.
That was us.
One was, well, I remember what they were.
Okay.
One was a high failure rate, which makes sense. Another was a high enrollment rate, that we need students to do this with. But what confused me is the budget issue. I mean, you said your concern in the course you're talking about really wasn't about saving money, it was about improving student success. But I'm wondering how savings is a function of this process and why?
Okay. We kept 5% of the students. By reducing that failure rate, we kept 5%. That means we kept the revenue for 5% more of the students coming in. That's one savings. And in an online environment, remember I mentioned the template process? You're building a course, and these are some new models. So you have to think about it, your institutions would think about it, your leadership would think about it. But this is the same course that everyone teaches, so the students walk away with the same experience. So we don't have to come up with any additional new books or resources for this one course. So those are the 2 things that I see are savings. Number 1, keeping the student there, so that tuition. And the other thing is you have the same course and you can actually train faculty to teach that same model to ensure students leave with the same experience. So you're not having one course design like this and students leave out differently. You have another course. But on average we have 15 sections, if not 20 or more, with 15 students in every one of those sections. And if everybody decided to do their own model and thought, the expense that would be associated with that. And right now, we don't have the funds for that. He's still questioning, and I want to let him get it out.
That's okay.
So, no, what is still puzzling for you?
I'm thinking it through. Someone else can.
Okay, we're going to come back.
I'm just curious, and this might be going slightly on tangent, but you have 15 sections of this course. What's the faculty presence, individual faculty presence in each of these online sections?
So do you want to know, are there requirements to be in the course, or I'm not?
I'm wondering, so student takes this, you have 15 different faculty members teaching 15 online sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Does each individual faculty member teach the exact same material and the exact same online content? So at the 7th semester, they go into Blackboard, they have the course that's already pre-designed, and what's their role? They're just grading material?
No, they can add to complement the course, but we must keep it aligned with the learning outcomes, all assignments. So they can add to the course. We're just saying don't take away from the core to ensure students leave away with that piece. You can add to, but you can't take away from it.
And just an additional question. What's been practices for faculty wanting to add like video content? So like a video lecture or something like that.
Okay, actually, our instructional design team, because I work with an entire instructional design team that works with faculty, support them, coach them through those things. They'll work with them because we try to keep a video to a certain, so we might help them break it up. We will help them if they want to actually sit down and do the whole media thing of your whole lecture, but of course, we're going to break it up in blocks. And there's only so much you can put in Blackboard before we crash it when it copies over. So they'll coach them on that. What are the values of that? But they don't want them, right now we're working on ADA. So if you have a video that you want, we need the transcript to go with it. So they're there to tell them, yes, we're not saying, we want a rich learning environment. So we feel like text could be violating also, just everything text could be violating ADA requirements, or it would be difficult for students with different learning styles to adapt to just text. So yes, we want some media, and a lot of our faculty use media in the courses. So that's not the issue. The instructional design team will work with them on those pieces that they want in there. 4 minutes? All right, any more questions? She just gave me the 4 minutes. So I'm going to ask some of our committee members if they'd like to add anything and share, because they've been here, most of them have been with Charter Oak longer than I have.
Your points around plagiarism and there were some heated discussions in some of the committees. Is that a good way to put it? There was some faculty who, over simple language that you wouldn't think would create such heated discussions. Singular words were creating weeks of dialogue. Yeah, it was hard. I mean, the idea of change was not easy for some of the faculty. The one thing that I find hard, I think it's different from Charter Oak than it is at some of the other schools because of the commonality that you have created across sections.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that because faculty often come from other schools within the system that are not held to those kind of pre-designed, you have a lead faculty who designs the curriculum for the course, and then when you roll out 7 sections, they kind of follow that same consistency. And personally, I love that because it does allow to ensure that students are meeting the outcomes they need to meet. But I think then when faculty are asked to teach those courses and they don't want to necessarily adhere to what you created, that creates problems. Because I would love to be able to take some of the core classes within my own business program and say, here is the core curriculum for you to teach, augment it as much as you would like. My faculty would scream academic freedom, and it wouldn't work my own personal sections, but I couldn't put it across other sections. And I think that's a benefit of Charter Oak, is that you can keep, your quality consistent.
Well, what she's talking about is we have no full-time faculty. And I depend on, if, just say she wants to build a course, then she becomes responsible for every section, every faculty member that comes after that. She's to give instructions on what she meant when she developed this curriculum, what is she going to do. It's not me, it becomes that lead instructor who takes on that role. And they get a stipend, faculty get a stipend if they have more sections and they have to provide guidance. But what happens is, with Charter Oak, because we have no full-time faculty, when you build a course, actually it does become our materials. And so then we pay you to help us maintain the quality of that course. We count on you to do that, help with the faculty with that course. If it needs to be redesigned because it goes out of date, we're hoping you're the one that wants to do that. And we pay for this. Even our committee members come and they really work hard, but they get a little stipend for their time of commitment to us. We really do. And you know what? What I meant with the change piece is you don't know what I went through to get these things through committees, and actually if it wasn't support of the person that is on the committee to have this changed to a liberal studies course, I'm not sure how that would have worked.
So how much time do you give yourself between redesigning a course and having to redesign it again if you're keeping a track record on,
Okay, this so far, because we saw the success, we won't have to redesign it. I'm going to be watching those failure rates. And then talking to the provost about what we can do with the withdrawal and administrative rates. Okay, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing.